But let's look at a couple of these albums. First of all, this is Joe Cocker with A Little Help from My Friends. This was a 1969 release. So it's one you can check the discography. I don't think it was his first album, although I'll stand corrected. But it was definitely one of his earlier albums. And of course, at Woodstock, that was the highlight of his set, was with A Little Help from My Friends, which he did. And it was right around the time this album had come out. So, but if you look at the back, we got some pretty interesting details. Look at this band that played on the back of this. First of all, you've got Jimmy Page played in this band. So this is right around the time Led Zeppelin was forming. And Jimmy Page was, I guess, coming out of the Yardbirds too, and also apparently still playing in the studio. Famously, he was a studio guitar player, and he's on this album. You've got none other than Stevie Winwood on this album. I looked. You can see the tracks here. He's not on all that many tracks, but he did play some organ on this album, so it's kind of an all-star band. Up here, you've got Chris Stanton. And, of course, Chris Stanton is just a great rock and roll piano player. A lot of that old school rock and roll piano and blues, too. But, I would say rock and roll piano is an art form, and there aren't all that many people around that do it. And Chris Stanton is one of the people that does it. And I've seen him several times with Eric Clapton. And maybe I've seen him with other people, too. But I've definitely seen him several times with Eric Clapton because I think he's been in a lot of the bands I've seen Clapton perform with, going back to the early 80s anyway. Now over here you've got Henry McCullough, who was in Spooky Tooth and also ended up being the guitar player for Jesus Christ Superstar, and I love Jesus Christ Superstar. And if you ever get to think, well, Jesus Christ Superstar, that's about religion, or it's kind of a Broadway thing or something. That was a rock and roll opera, and look at Henry McCullough played the lead guitar on that. And I think you can check the details. Some of these other guys might have been in that too. Some version of this band was called the Grease Band, and they were the band you see at Woodstock. So kind of that Woodstock band you see Joe Cocker perform with, which was a selection of these guys, went on to do Jesus Christ Superstar. But it's a really good album. Look, you got Feeling All Right, the Traffic Dave Mason song. I always think of the Grand Funk version of that. But a lot of these I would call standards. Bye Bye Blackbird. And he has a great version of that. Does Dylan's Just Like a Woman. Great version. Then you've got Do I Still Figure in Your Life? And there you've got Stevie Winwood on organ. Sandpaper Cadillac. Oh, okay, that's oh Lord, I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood, which was an Animals song. Cat Stevens did that. I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. And then, of course, you've got the awesome with a little help from my friends, which I would argue has the greatest rock and roll scream in rock and roll history. There are a couple other contenders. Steven Tyler's got just the good old Primal Scream Therapy scream. And we're not counting Yoko Ono in the competition for best rock and roll scream, because I think her version of screaming is not quite the same thing. But he's got one of the best rock and roll screams ever, which is sort of hilarious. That'll go to my... And then he's got the Dylan song. But a great album.